My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old. I work for a developer company that handles everything from real estate sales to management. My family has been landowners for generations, especially during my father's time when he expanded the business as a real estate agent. He was a wealthy man with a wide network of friends, and I was truly proud of him. But fate is cruel. My father was suddenly taken away from us by a sudden illness. No one could accept it, but as his daughter, I had to pull myself together, proceed with the funeral preparations, and ensure we gave him a proper farewell. Just before the funeral service was about to start, I realized I couldn't find my husband anywhere. My husband, who had joined my father's company as the chief accountant, was supposed to be handling the reception of guests along with my sister Rachel and me, but no matter how much I looked, he was nowhere to be found. "Rachel, do you know where Daniel is? Isn't he handling the guests?" I asked, starting to worry. "That's what I thought, but I can't see him anymore," she replied, equally puzzled. There was too much to do, and I couldn't keep track of where Daniel was. Since Dad died, I had noticed many times when Daniel wasn't around. "Really? Hey, why don't you give him a call? The funeral service is about to start," urged my sister. I called Daniel on my smartphone. After a few rings, he answered. "Hello, Daniel. Where are you right now?" I asked, my anxiety growing. "Sorry, Sarah, I can't go back there anymore." "What?" I was shocked. "Yeah, sorry. I spent $100,000 on my mistress," he admitted. "What are you talking about?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I was acting as your dad's agent. I took his account information and used $100,000 of his money," he continued, oblivious to my feelings. Suddenly, my sister turned around with a look of shock. "He quietly took and spent Dad's money. How could he?" she whispered. While I was processing this betrayal, Daniel's voice kept flowing from the phone. "Thanks for everything. I'm going to live with my mistress now. Please fill out the divorce papers at home and send them in. Bye." The call ended abruptly, and I stood there in stunned silence. A staff member approached me, gently reminding me, "The funeral service is about to start. It's the last time to say goodbye to your dad." I took a deep breath, trying to gather myself. I had to focus on saying goodbye to my father. Everything else could wait. I made a firm resolution to honor him. Daniel and I met 5 years ago. Dad was the one who brought us together. It was at an opening event where the organizer introduced Daniel to Dad. Daniel often visited that event with friends, and at that time, Dad was looking for a new accountant. The organizer remembered that Daniel was an accountant, and Dad immediately liked him. He decided to appoint Daniel as the new accountant. I was unsure about trusting someone we had just met, but Dad didn't mind. He was impressed by Daniel's excellent communication skills. Dad wanted us to meet Daniel, so he invited him over for dinner. Dad had raised my sister and me alone since we lost our mom early. He also lost his parents in an accident when he was a student and had lived desperately since then. This quality resonated with Dad. "You're always welcome here," my dad told Daniel. True to his word, Daniel started coming over to our house. At first he came with my father, but eventually he started visiting on his own. "Do you think the accountant is after you?" my sister casually mentioned as we lounged in the living room. "What? No, I don't think so." "Come on, you know it too, right? Do you really think he comes over to our dad's house so often just for work-related stuff?" "Well, I don't know. I know for a fact that Daniel asked you out." "What?" I was surprised. "Hi," she grinned mischievously, realizing she had successfully baited me. Just as she suspected, Daniel and I had exchanged contact information without realizing it. Before I knew it, we were going out together, and soon it became natural for us to be together. For someone as romantically clueless as me, it had become a comfortable situation. My father and sister understood the change in my feelings and watched over us from a comfortable distance without saying anything. Our relationship continued smoothly, and 2 years ago we got married. I continued my job as usual, and my husband became the exclusive accountant for my father's company. In place of my busy father, he often handled financial matters as his proxy. Personally, I was opposed to entrusting money to a stranger, even if he was my husband, and I made that clear to my father. However, my father didn't heed my words and trusted my husband with the proxy duties. My husband, pleased with the responsibilities, did his best. Another concern was my husband's frequent going out. Originally, it was for work-related socializing. My father and husband had met at a bar, so that in itself wasn't a problem. The bar owner was a very nice lady whom I knew well and trusted. However, it was a different story with others. "Did you go drinking again tonight?" I asked. "Yeah, well, the CEO of the company that just signed a contract with your father's company wanted to visit the bar my father-in-law invested in, so I had no choice." "No choice, huh? My dad texted me saying you seem to be having a great time." "What, he was there?" "Of course. He's also an investor and even lends out the place, so he goes there." "Yeah, I guess he would. If my husband was just having fun drinking at the bar, being seen by my father wouldn't matter. But if not—" "Is this girl Megan your new favorite?" I asked. "What? I heard from the owner that every time you go there you talk to Megan and look all cozy. The owner talks too much." "Well, of course. Imagine her position if an investor was getting involved with one of her employees. It's only natural for her to be cautious. It's normal for a guy to have fun with girls. Your father does the same, doesn't he?" "Look, just so you know, my father is a widower. To put it bluntly, it wouldn't be a problem socially, whoever he's involved with. But you're different, right? You're a married man. Do you understand where the responsibility would fall if something were to happen?" From the first impression, I couldn't help but feel my husband was somewhat frivolous. Of course, it's because of his light-heartedness that we are together now. Yet, as time went on, the initial impressions of his flirtiness and assertiveness had begun to give me an uneasy feeling. Probably my father was also aware of this. Even after that, there were occasional calls from my father concerning my husband. "Is Daniel home today?" Dad would ask. "Today he's with a client. What's up? Do you need something?" "No, the owner is worried about you. She's concerned you might be getting hurt about that girl. She's young and carefree. I suppose she means no harm, but the issue is Daniel is a married man. Just the thought of what could happen worries me." We talked about that recently. It's normal for men to play around with girls, they said. "I see. I'll talk to him a bit myself." "Sorry, Sarah. There's no need for my father to apologize. It's my husband who's being too oblivious as a married man. Soon after, my father talked to my husband, and it seems he stopped going to the bar. I was relieved to hear that, but then my sister told me something shocking about that girl Megan. It seems she's quitting the bar to go independent." "What?" I exclaimed. "I went to that bar with Dad the other day after Daniel stopped going. Megan quit soon after." "I heard her telling another girl at the bar," my sister said. "Really? She's still young, isn't she?" "I think she's 25. Seems like she found a sponsor." "It's not Daniel, is it?" "What? You mean you guys don't know each other's salaries?" "Well, yeah, I don't mind, but Daniel doesn't like it. You do work for a major developer and make a decent salary. Maybe he doesn't want to be compared. It's not that much, but still there are some things about Daniel's actions that are concerning." "Like what?" "Dad entrusted him with managing the company's money, right?" "Yeah. There's something that I've been worried about." "What do you mean?" "The story I heard from my sister was unthinkable, even as a hypothetical. If it were true, we had no choice but to carefully verify it. Shortly after our father suddenly fell ill and had to be hospitalized, my sister and I had hectic days managing his care and the company. 3 weeks later, the father we had been talking to just the day before passed away quietly. A week after the funeral, the mourning period ended, and my sister and I returned to everyday life. During that time, there was no contact from Daniel. Our father, being a wealthy man, had properly left a will under a lawyer's guidance. My sister and I, along with the lawyer, proceeded to discuss the estate and the company. While we were talking about this in the living room at home, my smartphone suddenly rang. Glancing at the screen, I saw my ex-husband Daniel's name displayed. I looked at my sister, turned on the speaker, and answered the call. "Hello?" "Hey, why can't I withdraw the money? You must have done something," he yelled. I had never heard him like this before. "What do you mean you can't withdraw the money? It's your father's bank account. Why can't I withdraw all of a sudden? I'm the agent." "Yeah, right. An agent in name only. You bastard who did whatever you wanted with Dad's and the company's money. Of course, the account would be frozen." "What are you even talking about? Why would it be frozen? I was using it." "Are you really an accountant?" "Even a high school student knows why. Since Dad passed away, of course, his accounts would be frozen. What did you think? His account with his name on it was yours? From the smartphone, I heard a faint curse from my ex-husband. Had he been so caught up with the large sum of money that he missed something crucial? My sister was listening to his voice with a look of utter disbelief. Well, that's good, isn't it? You gotta live a dreamlike life of splurging for a while. By the way, last time you mentioned spending $100,000 on your mistress, but what did you do for Megan? What? Why are you bringing up Megan? I already told you before. Dad heard from the bar owner about you and Megan. After that, Dad talked to you, and it seemed like you stopped going to the bar. But just because you didn't go doesn't mean you weren't still involved, right? I didn't. Come on, it's obvious. Megan quit the bar pretty soon after you stopped going. That's irrelevant. Is it? You probably got tired of Dad hassling you every time you went to the bar. Dad was the one who told me about Megan. It must have been annoying for you, especially after you set aside money for Megan. Was it another $100,000 this time? How much have you spent on her in total? My tone was controlled yet pressing, and my husband fell silent. Unable to hold back any longer, my sister burst out, "You're the worst, betraying Dad and my sister. It's already been discovered that you were embezzling money from the company. That money was going to that woman, wasn't it? She quit the bar not just because Dad was a nuisance, but because his money financed her new venture, right?" "What? That's so pathetic. A 35-year-old man using his father-in-law's money to keep a woman," my sister continued scathingly. My ex-husband must have been wondering how much we knew. From the speaker, his shallow breaths became louder, making his emotions palpable. Was the bar set up pretty quickly after she quit? Was it all prepared in advance? Megan had been preparing, and I was just providing the money. So it was all led by her? Poor thing, you didn't even realize you were being used. Do you even know what that money was? It was $200,000 from your inheritance from Dad. Can you believe you dumped it into a woman, reducing your inheritance? So foolish. What inheritance? What are you talking about? It was in Dad's will that the money you took from that account was meant to be your inheritance. What? Dad left a will? It's no wonder my husband was shocked. Normally, a son-in-law wouldn't expect an inheritance. That's probably why he thought he could freely spend the money from the agent account. He never imagined that money would actually be his inheritance. That was the account Dad had entrusted to you, right? For your personal payments and such. That's right. But Dad thought it was suitable to leave it to you as an inheritance, even though normally a son-in-law wouldn't get anything. Dad was really too kind, knowing how foolish you are. Really too kind. Dad was strict with his daughters, but overly indulgent with this man. His indulgence had made Daniel too arrogant. Knowing this, Dad had still forgiven him. Now, without a word of thanks for Dad's will, he only worried about the inheritance. Wait a minute. You mean I was spending an inheritance I didn't even know I had? What? That's the first thing you say? Even though you knew there was a will from Dad? Because it's my money, right? I can't accept this. I was thinking it's his money, so I used most of it. 90%, whatever's missing, should be covered from his other assets. Seriously, what a jerk. Cheating, freely spending other people's money, and now demanding to be compensated for what he spent. He's nothing but selfish. No way. Dad said that the money in that account was to be your inheritance. It doesn't matter how much was there, it's specifically the money in that account. And just so you know, a will is absolute. Dad's will wasn't just a letter, it was properly drafted and executed. It's final. No, it'll work out somehow. What? Even as an accountant, you can't tell if it's possible. Shut up! Being an accountant doesn't matter here. From the speaker, my ex-husband's shouting and complaints continued relentlessly. He had brought this on himself, but it was still unbearable, and there was a more serious issue my ex-husband needed to face. My sister loudly cleared her throat, her voice overshadowing my ex-husband's complaints. Guess what? I just found out that woman is married. Silence fell instantly. A response came immediately. What? Who? You're not talking about Megan, are you? I understand how you feel, but... Well, yeah. Who else but Megan? This was a devastating blow. My ex-husband gasped for breath, speechless. My sister couldn't stop grinning at his reaction while I looked on dispassionately. I skimmed through the documents in front of me. You want to believe it's a lie, don't you? But it's true. She said her lover is an old childhood friend, a true romance, my sister continued. What? You got divorced just to be with her, and now you can't. I'm not sure if she ever really intended to be with you. It's a lie. You're just trying to set me up with such a transparent lie. All of you. Who wants to set you up? Someone like you isn't worth the effort. No, Megan was using you from the start. She approached you because she heard you were the son-in-law of the investor, looking to tap into the funds, and she caught you just like that, all for her man. If you think it's a lie, should I send you the document I have here via text? Our lawyer dug it up, so it includes her name and detailed background. I don't want to see it. His agonized voice was so loud it seemed to shake the speaker. It clenched my heart. So you want to run away now that you know the true face of your real girlfriend? As usual, you turn a blind eye to anything that's not in your favor. Well, that's why you've been stealthily stealing money without a care. It's just your character. You could hear his teeth grinding through the phone. His nature was to push aggressively but back down quickly. Even our divorce was him running away. I almost gagged at the realization of how poor his judgment in people was. But in a way, you are a perfect match. She deceived you, but you deceived our family. What? The same, right? You approached Dad and my sister to get to the money? You married her to secure a more advantageous position for yourself, didn't you? That's not what it was. You targeted me instead of the sharp and logical Rachel because you thought I was easier to deceive, right? His silence was an affirmation. It was clear he married me, but in reality, he married my family for money or power. Whatever my ex-husband desired, I honestly didn't care anymore. He used our family's influence as much as he could, and once the main support of our home was gone, he discarded his nominal wife and fled. My ex-husband and that woman, a match made in heaven. But there was one crucial difference between them. Unfortunately, even if you are well-suited, you can't be together. She will never leave her husband. I don't believe that. She told me she wants to be with me forever. She even said she wants me to handle the finances eventually for the bar. Eventually when? That eventually is never going to come. What? Because she runs that bar with her husband. His scream was so loud we instinctively covered our ears. My sister, undeterred by my ex-husband's shouting, bluntly laid out the truth. You said earlier that you left the business of the bar entirely to the woman, right? I bet she told you she wanted to handle everything on her own without relying on anyone. His sudden silence was telling. She just didn't want you meddling in it. Probably told you to wait until after the bar had its grand opening, right? What does it matter if she did? Unfortunately for you, that bar has been open for over a year now. What? The bar is run mainly by Megan's husband. That's where you were duped into providing the operating funds. Ignorance really is bliss, isn't it? With that, my sister couldn't hold back her laughter. By the way, the bar's name isn't Bar Asl. What? Obviously. It's been open for over a year now. Ael was just a dummy name used in your conversations. You've probably been searching for that name, right? Well, you wouldn't find it. It doesn't exist. My ex-husband was completely silent, seemingly unable to grasp why we knew all this. Are you alone right now? What? So you're yelling at us because you're alone. Where did she go? She's been back at her parents' since the day before yesterday because they were ill. Well, since it's come to this, I'll let you in on something. You'll never return there again. Stop annoying me. What are you talking about? Why haven't you even wondered how we know what we just discussed? Guess you're too obsessed with money to remember that accounts get frozen when people die, Daniel. She's not going to show up in front of you anymore. Why? Why would that be? We spoke to her. Once she realized we knew about the stolen money, she got scared and spilled everything. What? Like you dumped me, she's dumped you too. Sorry for your loss. My smile must have carried through my voice because my ex-husband gasped for air on the other end. So I'll hand over that bank account to you. Use the rest as you like. It's yours anyway. Wait, what am I supposed to do with a frozen account? That's your problem. You took it upon yourself to withdraw and spend the money, so figure it out yourself. What about a lawyer? Why don't you hire one yourself? Why should our lawyer work for someone like you? What? The divorce papers have already been filed. You and I are strangers now. We no longer have anything to do with you. Oh, and by the way, Dad's company is being shut down, so obviously you're no longer needed. Wait, I didn't hear about this. The divorce? You brought the papers yourself, so I filed them right away. Any complaints? No, about the company. It's written in Dad's will. He wanted the company he started for personal reasons to be closed after his death. The main business has been transferred to Rachel, and the lawyers handled it. They won't sue for the return of the stolen money if it's considered your severance. Stolen money? The money you had been funneling to that woman? Oh, I should say the money you thought was going into Bar AL. Shut up. What? Do you still have something to say? Do you even understand your situation? If it were up to us, this would be a police matter. Dad was too lenient, not pursuing theft, not requiring repayment. That would never fly with us. The police? Yeah, what you did amounts to theft, fraud, and embezzlement. You're just like that interpreter for the baseball player everyone's talking about. At those words, my ex-husband frantically clung to the conversation. Wait a minute. What now? Anything but the police. Please, no police. I'm not ready to give up on life yet. What is this man even talking about? He's only in this position because of his own actions. Don't joke with me. Your life was over a long time ago. Who do you think has been keeping you alive? Fueled by deep anger, my sister made my ex-husband gasp. I told him to never contact us again and ended what would be our last call. A year has passed since then. Today, as usual, my sister and I are enjoying a beer outside at our parents' home, looking out over the garden. So delicious. Yeah, she agreed. As we spoke, I took another sip of the bitter liquid. Around this time last year, right after Dad passed away, just thinking about it makes me angry. Yeah, a lot of unbelievable things happened. Exactly. But it wasn't because you married him that it all happened. It started because Dad was targeted, and Dad was just too soft. He really was. He was super strict with us, his daughters, but, thanks to that, we've been able to live respectable lives. Dad raised us alone since we were little, and I'm truly grateful to him. No doubt about it. Since then, we've had no contact with my ex-husband. Of course, we blocked his number, so that's to be expected. He probably couldn't reach out given the facts of what had happened. I assume he managed to sort out Dad's estate account on his own. We settled with that woman by making her pay a lump sum. Just recalling that time still makes me incredibly angry. He was a rotten human being, my sister said. Every word he said was irritating, and I was always ready to snap at him. As expected, our discussions went nowhere. So I informed him early on that our lawyer would be coming, which he probably took to mean arrest. His sudden humble attitude was transparent, and we clearly demanded repayment for the embezzled money along with damages. Megan was particularly rotten, saying it was true love with her husband. It made my mouth feel dirty. No way. Plus, after making others pay, she profited nicely. Seriously, she's not even human. Even now, just thinking about it makes me mad. This is ruining the beer. Let's drop it. No. You're the only one talking and complaining by yourself, I thought to myself, as I took another 2 or 3 sips of my beer. I wonder if Dad has found peace, my sister murmured quietly, voicing both our true feelings. In the end, despite our doubts and concerns, we shared with Dad. Neither of us really thought about changing anything. I even got married right after it was so dark. I can see why, but in the end, Dad was happy just seeing us laugh, even if it was with that awful man. After all, it was Dad who pushed him on me. Maybe Dad had noticed the risk in my husband. By taking him in, Dad acted as a barrier to prevent harm to others. I can't help but feel that, or rather, I'm sure that was the case. Dad was that kind of man. With everything settled, looking back makes many things clear. We need to be like Dad. I don't want to be someone who brings home such a terrible man. While saying this, my sister's expression softened, affirming my words. Dad, you were truly great. Can we be like him? I want to. No, we need to. It's impossible for us to do exactly as Dad did, but I want to be someone who can protect what he cherished.
How could you do this to us?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Clara, my daughter-in-law, peered at me over the dining table, eyebrows raised in feigned innocence. "Do what, Meredith?" My face burned. We were all gathered at Clara and Ethan's luxurious home, one of Clara's over-the-top dinner parties, meant to celebrate my grandson Aiden's acceptance to Columbia University. At least, that's what I thought. "You didn't make anything for us?" Alan, my husband of 30 years, spoke softly beside me. His eyes held more hurt than anger. "But you knew we were coming." Clara laughed lightly, the sound grating against my nerves. "Oh, I just didn't have the time today. Anyway, we'll order something later. This party is for Aiden, not you." I bit my tongue, the metallic taste of blood flooding my mouth. "Easy, Meredith. Not now." I smiled tightly. "Of course, whatever Aiden wants." I watched my grandson, a tall 18-year-old with his father's gentle eyes. He stood surrounded by his rowdy friends, oblivious to the tension. A twinge of sadness caught in my chest. We had helped raise him, Alan and I. We had gifted him his first bicycle, sat beside his hospital bed when he broke his arm skateboarding, and now helped pay those towering college tuition bills. And this was how his mother treated us. Like burdens, unwanted guests. I felt Alan's weathered hand close around mine. "We're happy you can provide all this for Aiden," Alan said evenly. "Columbia is expensive, though. Let us know if you need." Clara waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, please. Ethan makes plenty." Her voice dropped. "Certainly more than a school teacher's pension or whatever measly salary comes from working at a library." The room tilted. "Our jobs are honest, not something to be ashamed of," I managed. This wasn't the first barb about our average middle-class life. But on tonight of all nights, it stung. Who said anything about shame? Clara's eyes glinted. "But let's be real. Your little check isn't making any dent in Columbia's tuition. Maybe if you'd had more to invest when Ethan was young." "Clara, that's quite unfair." Ethan finally spoke up from her side, frowning. "Mom and Dad help how they can." Clara snorted. "Yeah, buy the kid a computer and call it a day. That laptop was top of the line, young lady. We scrimped and saved." Alan sounded properly angry now. "Then where is it?" Clara challenged. "I never see Aiden using it." "He loves that computer," I jumped in, though my mind spun wondering the same thing. Where did it go? Aiden was attached to all his electronics. Clara checked the diamond Rolex on her wrist. "Look, the catering van will be here soon. Are we done?" "Done?" I fought to steady my voice. "Stay calm, Meredith. I suppose we are, for now." I rose on unsteady legs, Alan's strong arm coming around me. We managed strained goodbyes to Ethan before escaping into the cold night air. As Alan's sedan pulled out of the long driveway, tears burned in my eyes. That laptop was only the first of many gifts we'd given Aiden over the years. Gifts from our hearts, not our wallets. And tonight, it had all been thrown back in our faces. What else of ours had Clara tossed aside? The thought made my stomach turn. 30 years of marriage and family life, and one spoiled, greedy woman threatened to tear it all down on a senseless whim. I dashed the bitter tears away as Alan and I drove home in silence through the dark suburban streets. No, I decided, gripping the worn leather seat until my knuckles whitened. This wasn't over yet. I refused to let her win. The next morning, I sipped my coffee, unable to shake Clara's stinging words. My gaze fell on the living room bookshelf lined with framed photos. Birthdays, holidays, Aiden's first lost tooth. Our family moments filled the shelves. Would Clara toss those aside too if she got the chance? "We should check in on Aiden," Alan said, sinking into his recliner with the newspaper. "Make sure his party went well after we left." I nodded. "You're right, I'll video call him later." I rose to clear our mugs. As I rinsed them in the sink, my phone dinged from the counter. A Facebook notification. Frowning, I picked it up. Aiden had posted a new profile picture. I smiled, seeing his handsome grin, his arm slung around a pretty brunette. But my eyes caught on the background. A shiny new laptop sat open behind him. What? I peered closer. The laptop in the photo was sleek, slim, and definitely not the bulky gaming computer we had gifted him. "Alan," my voice came out strangled. "Come look." He hurried over, face paling when he saw the image. What in blazes? "She sold it," I leaned weakly against the counter. "She must have, probably for one of her shopping sprees." Since marrying Ethan, Clara had developed a love for fast cars, fancy clothes, exotic getaways, anything to flaunt her wealth, it seemed. Alan's face hardened. I'm calling our son. Snatching up his cell phone, he jabbed at the screen. My heart pounded as I listened to the ringing tone. Dad, everything okay? Ethan sounded distracted when he finally answered. Voices and clinking glasses echoed behind him. He must still be hosting guests. Where's the computer your mother and I gave Aiden? Alan cut right to it. A pause. What? The laptop, Alan insisted. The one we bought him for college prep. Where is it? Oh, that old thing. Ethan seemed to muffle the phone, his voice growing faint. Hey, babe, what happened to that computer my parents gave? His words faded out. I held my breath. Alan's fist clenched white. Finally, Ethan returned. Yeah, Aiden said he hasn't used that one in months. It was getting pretty slow anyway, so Clara bought him an upgrade. Alan exploded. We spent good money on that laptop. Did you sell it for one of her shopping sprees? Some fancy watch or purse for Clara? No, Dad. Ethan sounded shocked by Alan's eruption. The hard drive was failing, Aiden said. Clara got him a solid-state one, much faster processor. It wasn't cheap. Alan deflated on the couch, shaking his head warily. So our gift wasn't good enough, once again. You know how Clara is, always needing the newest and best. Ethan trailed off awkwardly. Yes, we knew exactly how Clara was, greedy, irrational, fixated on status. I squeezed Alan's shoulder as he ended the call. We sat in disheartened silence. Something still didn't sit right within me. That gaming laptop had still been perfectly new. And Aiden loved high-end electronics. He wouldn't neglect a still functional device. There had to be more going on. Over the next week, I observed Clara more closely during our brief interactions. Her behavior raised more red flags, expensive outfits and accessories popping up, recurring emergency expenses that prompted her to borrow money from Ethan's account. Once, while dropping off groceries, I spotted an unpaid medical bill on their kitchen counter with an urgent final notice stamp. Yet when Alan and I discreetly offered help, Clara became defensive. We're fine. Just fine, she insisted, laughing it off. Ethan takes good care of me. But the signs of financial distress still slipped through the cracks in her entitled facade. My suspicion solidified into an uncomfortable certainty. Something secretive was festering in my daughter-in-law's pampered life, and I had to find out what. Do you think Clara would accept money from us? I asked Alan one evening as we tidied up after dinner. He paused, wiping the table to give me a wary look. What brought this on? I twisted the dish rag tightly in my hands. I know Ethan makes good money, but they never seem to have enough. The medical bills, her shopping, something doesn't add up. I thought maybe we could help take some pressure off. Alan shook his head. We can't go throwing money at their problems, Mir. Clara won't change. She'll just keep asking for more. I knew he was right. I finished the dishes in defeated silence. Later in bed, I picked up my tablet, scrolling mindlessly through photos of Aiden, my sweet grandson somehow born to that selfish woman. College was just around the corner for him. We had already drained part of our retirement savings to cover the tuition Clara and Ethan couldn't afford. I couldn't bear seeing him stranded due to his mother's issues. As I gazed at a photo of Aiden in his high school graduation cap and gown, an idea struck me. Clara seemed obsessed with status and prestige. That desire had driven which college she pushed Aiden to attend. What if we could use that to our advantage, offer them more money, but ensure it actually went to Aiden's future this time? The next time Clara extended her hand asking for help, I made the proposal over lunch. As expected, her painted lips curved into an eager smile. Oh, we couldn't possibly accept, Meredith, she declined with fake humility. That's too generous. I kept my tone casual. Nonsense. He's our only grandson. We want to invest in his future, and Columbia has so many opportunities. We don't mind dipping into our savings if it's for Aiden. Right on cue, Clara's manicured hand shot out to clutch my arm. Well, in that case, if you insist. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Who knows if Ethan's job will even last in this economy? It would be wise to set up a nest egg for our boy. My stomach turned at the false sincerity oozing from her. Still I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Maybe a college fund, for Aiden's direct use when he's on campus? Please take the bait, I thought. Clara laughed loudly. Oh gosh, no, we'd invest it into one of Ethan's portfolios for the best return. Can't have money just sitting around. But I promise it would benefit Aiden in the end. She leaned in with a wink. It can be our little secret from Ethan. You know how hard it is for dads to let their babies grow up. Gotcha. My hands clenched under the table. Anything for her selfish gain, even secrecy from my own son. At that moment, my decision solidified. Clara would pay a price for this endless greed and manipulation. I only prayed her schemes hadn't yet sunk Aiden's future. Over the next months, I withdrew the last of our carefully built savings, transferring it in small chunks into the separate account Clara discreetly set up. With each payment, I made sure to remind her, "This is Aiden's college money, every cent." Clara would respond with a conspiratorial grin. Of course, of course. Consider it his rainy day fund on campus." Yet the strain never left her eyes. She continued borrowing cash from Ethan, juggling bills and debts. Once I noticed a bookie's collection notice tucked into her mailbox. So exactly where was all our money going? The black hole of Clara's reckless spending didn't seem to have a bottom, and I intended to expose it wide open, for Aiden's sake. My husband and I now spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, our lifelong security gone. But it would be worth it. I would make sure of that. We had sacrificed too much already for our family. It was time Clara did the same. I awoke early on Aiden's 18th birthday, sadness and anger already souring my stomach. Ever since we drained our savings for his cryptic college fund, Clara had grown distant. My weekly calls to check on Aiden now went straight to voicemail. Any visit requests were met with an automated, "We're so busy right now" text. But there was no way she could blacklist us from Aiden's milestone birthday. I dressed in my best black slacks and cream blouse while Alan dug out an old sport coat. "Hard to believe our grandson's all grown up," he murmured. We smiled softly at each other, clinging to nostalgic memories, the only way we seemed able to hold on to Aiden lately. My breath caught as we pulled up outside their sleek modern home, the long driveway crowded with luxury cars. Of course, Clara was throwing one of her over-the-top bashes. At least 20 strangers milled about sipping cocktails on the broad-back patio. No sign of Aiden yet. I steadied my nerves as we approached Clara, welcoming her glittering guests. Sharp as always in a curve-hugging red cocktail dress, she raised her sculpted brows at us, her eyes flashing. "Meredith, Alan, you're early." Was that annoyance in her syrupy voice? Before I could respond, she called out loudly, "The waitstaff is still setting up inside, but don't worry, I'll have them take your things." On cue, a young waiter hurried over. Clara air-kissed my cheeks, whispering, "We'll chat later, okay?" Then she vanished into the sparkling crowd. My face burned as the waiter led us awkwardly through the lavish, unfamiliar house. These people sipping bubbly were not our peers. They're Clara's friends, other society wives, executives, bankers, people who wouldn't glance twice at a retired teacher and a library clerk. My fists clenched, nails biting into my palms. We found Aiden out back at the patio bar, downing a shot with his school friends. His handsome face lit up when he saw us. "Grandma! Gramps!" He rushed over, sweeping me into a big hug. I clung to his sturdy shoulders, overwhelmed with bittersweet joy. My boy, my sweet boy. "Happy birthday, kiddo!" Alan said gruffly, clapping Aiden's back. His voice had gone hoarse. "Thanks for coming, guys," Aiden said. "Mom's kinda going overboard as always, but stick around, okay? You gotta see my awesome presents." He grinned excitedly, then raced off to greet more arrivals. We settled awkwardly on patio chairs, watching the young partygoers laugh and shout around us. The DJ turned the music deafening. An hour dragged by. No sign of Clara or Aiden. My head throbbed from the pulsating songs about fast cars and money and sex, each lyric like a paper cut. Finally, Clara reappeared, a glittering vision in red. "Cake time," she announced in a shrill, girlish voice. My gut told me she'd had a few drinks already, even though it was barely sunset. The guests whooped, clustering around an elaborate 5-tier cake glowing with sparklers. Clara spotted us hanging back and swayed over with a sly smile. "Well, if it isn't my favorite in-laws scurrying out of their middle-class bubble. Have you ever seen a birthday cake like this?" She didn't wait for a response, calling for Aiden to make a wish. I watched my grandson close his eyes dutifully before blowing out the fiery candles. My throat tightened. Not long ago, birthdays were an intimate family affair around our wooden kitchen table. His favorite dinners, scratch cake from Grandpa, thoughtful gifts picked out with care, not price tags. Now we were alien spectators from Clara's realm of excess. After cake, Clara air-kissed Aiden's cheek. "Present time, baby. Let's see all these goodies from Mama." The DJ killed the music so she could hand Aiden boxes of sleek electronics, gaming gear, expensive clothing. The stack just kept growing. Finally, Clara announced breathlessly, "Ready for the big finale, birthday boy?" She paused, smirking right at me. "Hit it, DJ!" The pounding music returned as a shiny black BMW coupe rolled up the driveway, a giant red bow on top. The crowd roared their approval. I stared numbly as Aiden hugged his mother, stumbling over effusive thanks. Over Clara's shoulder, her smug gaze met mine. In her glittering, golden eyes, I read the challenge loud and clear. Just try competing with this. The BMW's engine roared as Aiden's friends shouted their admiration. I watched my grandson grin from ear to ear, drunk on luxury and privilege, with no idea the cost. My legs shook as I rose from the patio chair. "Leaving already?" Clara appeared at my side, all faux concern. I breathed deeply, clutching my sweater around myself. "We'll get out of your way now. Clearly you have quite the party fund." I kept my voice even. Alan took my hand supportively. For a second, Clara's smile slipped. "At least your gift stack isn't too shabby this year," she pushed with an arched brow. "Hope you saved some retirement money for the Rolex, bro. Aiden will want next year, though." With a brassy laugh, she vanished into her circle of glittering guests. We left in defeated silence. As Alan drove us away, I stared fixedly out the window, palms clammy in my lap. Hot tears pushed at the backs of my eyes, but I refused them escape. How long would Clara keep diminishing us? Until we had nothing left, not money, dignity, or family. Back home, I went immediately to my laptop, fingers trembling over the keyboard. Please still be there. Drawing a stealing breath, I logged into the hidden account Clara had my drain livelihood into these long months. Blood roared in my ears as the balance loaded on screen. The world tilted around me. $200,000, our entire life savings meant for Aiden's college, gone without a trace. And Clara's money pit kept demanding more. My voice came out a cracked whisper, "No more." At that moment, something solid and unmoving rooted deep inside me. No more bowing and scraping so Clara could swan around flashing her designer labels. No more tight smiles while our grandson became a stranger obsessed with status. This ended now, even if I had to tear apart my own family roots in the process. Clara had committed the ultimate betrayal. Alan held me as I wept furious, helpless tears into the late hours of night. But when the sun rose, my resolve remained, cold and steady as steel. Clara had treated me as weak too long. Now she would witness my strength firsthand. I spent the next week gathering every ounce of evidence documenting Clara's financial deceit. Printouts of bank statements showing money transfers she denied receiving, copies of ignored medical bills and debts, records of sold possessions she claimed were broken, photos revealing her in luxury resorts after borrowing cash for groceries. I moved with quiet, methodical calm while fury raged inside me. My lifelong passivity had allowed this rotten infection to fester. No more. The time had come for our grandson to see his mother clearly for the manipulative, selfish liar she was, whatever it cost. Soon after, the phone rang showing Ethan's number. My pulse spiked, but I kept my tone casual as I answered. "Ethan, how nice of you to call. Hey, Mom." His serious voice set me instantly on edge. "Have you talked to Clara lately?" I sank onto the sofa, files of evidence surrounding me. "We chatted a few weeks ago. Why do you ask?" "Please tell me you've wised up to her." Ethan paused before responding. "I'm worried about Aiden's college money. Clara got me to invest almost everything in this cryptocurrency startup, said she had a good feeling about it, but the CEO just got indicted for fraud. The assets are all frozen now. I think it might all be gone." His breath came ragged. "Our boy's future, everything we saved?" "This everything you and your father saved, you mean?" Red-hot rage flooded my veins, almost choking me, but I managed to keep my tone flat. "Oh, Ethan, that's terrible." In the heavy silence, I swore I heard the last tie between me and my greedy daughter-in-law snap clean apart. She had flown too close to the sun on wings of her lies. Now it was time for her long, crushing plummet back to reality, with my family in tow. "Come to dinner in 2 nights," I told Ethan evenly. "Bring Aiden. We have a lot to discuss." I set 2 extra plates around the dinner table, my pulse fluttering with anticipation. After years of Clara slowly whittling away our dignity, tonight the axe would fall on her web of lies at last. Right on time, the front door flew open. "Grandma! Gramps!" Aiden came loping in, grinning from ear to ear. I squeezed his broad shoulders, drinking in that familiar smile I feared Clara stealing away for good. Ethan followed behind, his face lined and weary. My son, my first baby, now a father himself, needing my protection once again from his scheming wife's selfish ploys. I ushered them into the small, cozy dining room. Clara always mocked my homey decor, but I now felt grateful for the intimacy. No glittering strangers to bear witness tonight, just truth unveiled between family. "Sorry Clara couldn't join us," Ethan said tersely as we dished up steaming bowls of beef stew. "She had some last-minute appointment." Likely concocting another excuse for the missing college fund, I thought bitterly. But I held my tongue. Tonight, Clara's own actions would speak for her. We made stilted small talk through dinner about Aiden's college plans, carefully dancing around the massive financial elephant in the room. As we finished dessert, Ethan finally broke. "Okay, sorry. I know this is awkward, but we need to talk, Mom." He leaned forward, elbows braced on the tablecloth I had stitched myself ages ago. "Aiden's tuition money that Clara made me invest, it's gone. All of it. I don't understand where it... Gone?" My sharp tone sliced him short. I rose slowly from my chair, nodding at Alan. As one, we turned our eyes on Aiden, his dear face so innocent and oblivious. No more. Without a word, I retrieved the heavy box of Clara's financial records from our bedroom, returning to lift the lid. Reams of secrets and deceit. I inhaled slowly, meeting my grandson's curious gaze. "Aiden, your college money didn't just vanish. The truth is, your mother took it. She lied to you and your father. Lied to Alan and I too." My voice rang clear as a bell in the heavy silence. Ethan's eyes blew wide in shock. But Aiden just frowned, glancing between all our taut faces. "Mom took it? What do you mean?" In response, I simply started laying out the evidence piece by piece. Bank statements recording money transferred, then quickly spent, not on groceries or clothes, but designer purses, exotic getaways, scratch-off lottery tickets, default and collections notices on thousands in medical debt. Records detailing possessions of ours she had sold behind our backs, and most damning, the emptied college fund she sworn was safely invested. With each incriminating paper, Ethan's face grew paler, while Aiden shifted with visible discomfort. Yet I maintained merciless eye contact with my grandson. He needed to see exactly who his mother was. A manipulator who would rob even her own son's future just to fuel her endless selfish greed. "Why?" Aiden finally rasped into the ringing silence. "How could Mom do this?" His broad shoulders trembled as he turned to his father. "Dad?" Ethan just gazed back, hollow-eyed with shock. So I answered gently, because she felt entitled to maintain a certain image and lifestyle, no matter who suffered. Because your father and I kept letting her cross lines without consequence. I reached out to clasp Aiden's shaking hand, and she counted on you never realizing how she took advantage of this family's trust and love. At that moment, Aiden lifted his head. Our eyes met, his shimmering with angry, unshed tears. But behind the fury and pain, I now glimpsed clarity. He finally recognized Clara for the shallow, selfish liar she was. The woman who would gamble away her own child's future just to keep up the illusion of extravagant wealth a little longer. In redeeming my grandson's truth, I had also won back his trust, and that victory was sweeter than any revenge I could ever extract on Clara. The damning evidence lay strewn across the table between us. Aiden stared down at his mother's web of deceit, shoulders hunched in disbelief. My strong grandson reduced before my eyes to a wounded little boy once again. I squeezed his arm gently. "I know this is a shock, but try to remember the mother you knew before all this." I waved my hand over the records of Clara's obsessive greed. Underneath everything, that heart still beats inside her. Ethan scraped a trembling hand down his unshaven face. "I just don't understand. Why hide so much debt and lies behind my back? We're married, for God's sake." As if summoned, the front door suddenly banged open. Clara's shrill voice preceded her wafting cloud of Chanel No. 5. Absolute disaster. He promised everything would be ready. Her made-up face appeared as she clicked into the dining room, stopping short. "Oh, you all look cozy." Aiden's head jerked up, eyes red-rimmed but narrowing. Clara glanced between our taut expressions, her sharp gaze hesitating on the incriminating documents displayed on her son's college fund. The box of Pandora now thrown open, its secrets laid bare across her meticulous world of illusion. For one breathless moment, I thought I glimpsed a shadow of remorse or fear crack her polished veneer. But then Clara drew herself tall, armor of entitlement and arrogance clicking back into place. "Well, this looks intense for a weeknight dinner party," she laughed lightly. "What exactly did I interrupt?" One sculpted brow arched as her shrewd eyes dared us to speak the truth, dared us expose her right to Aiden's face. Beside me, Alan cleared his throat gruffly. "Your little financial circus act, it's over, Clara. We know everything." "Dad, no?" Ethan half rose from his chair, hands raised in pleading reconciliation. But Aiden stood abruptly, chair skidding back. His young face had set like stone. For a moment, he just gazed at his mother until Clara shifted on her designer heels. "Okay, seriously, what is going on?" she demanded with a tinkling, nervous laugh. When no one answered, her sharp eyes narrowed, honing in on me. "Have you been telling stories again, Meredith?" I rose slowly. "No stories this time, just facts." I gestured calmly to the evidence arrayed across my grandmother's tablecloth like a prosecutor. Bank statements, default notices, sold possessions, an emptied college fund. Shall I go on? Clara paled under her perfect makeup. She stood motionless except for one manicured finger compulsively twirling her diamond necklace. The incriminating paper crinkled loudly as Aiden snatched up a default notice, his young voice cracking. "Is it true? You spent all my tuition money, just so you could buy fancy purses and clothes?" "Aiden, sweetheart." Clara glided toward him, palms raised beseechingly. "Let's talk about this later, just us. Your grandmother clearly has some wild idea." "Don't." Aiden recoiled from her outstretched hands, face mottled red in outrage. "Grandma showed me bank records. You lied for years and stole from my college fund." His accusatory words rang out like gunshots in the heavy air. "Tell me the truth, Mom. For once, just stop lying." Clara froze, manicured fingers suspended inches from her son's arm. Her mouth opened soundlessly as she slowly scanned our circle of faces. Ethan's downcast in shame, mine set like stone, Alan's etched with weary disappointment. No allies left for her games and manipulations. Finally, Clara turned back to Aiden. For a long, taut moment, their identical hazel eyes clashed, one pair seeking truth, the other guarding secrets. When Clara spoke at last, her usual breezy melodic tones had sharpened to a fine, brittle edge. "I did it for us, Aiden. For our family. Your father and I only want what's best." "By spending money meant for my college?" Aiden shot back. "How does that help me, Mom?" Clara flinched as though slapped. In the ringing silence, Ethan slowly stood and crossed the room to gently draw Aiden against his side. Father and son united as they gazed at this superficial, selfish woman who had manipulated their family nearly to ruin. The axe had fallen at last. Now we would see just what, if anything, remained standing in the wreckage Clara herself caused. In the ringing silence, Clara scanned our hard faces, searching for a shred of empathy. Finding none, she attempted a weak laugh. Clearly, there's been some misunderstanding here. When no one reacted, she drew herself straighter. The tuition financing just didn't work out as I planned, but I only wanted the best for Aiden. I stepped forward, blood pounding in my ears. "The best? You gambled away his future on selfish whims without a second thought." Clara rounded on me, manicured finger raised like a weapon. "So I'm the villain just for trying to give my son the lifestyle he deserves? I saw a chance to set us up for life, and I took it." "With money you swore was earmarked for college," Alan cut in raggedly. "Our grandson's education, his whole future." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Clara waved a dismissive hand. "Ethan makes good money. We would have figured something out." Aiden pulled away from his father's comforting grip. "No, Mom, it's not just the tuition. You've been lying for years." His young face radiated fiery disappointment. "Whenever Grandma and Gramps gave me gifts, you sold them behind my back. Birthday money, my computer." Ethan's head jerked toward his wife. "Wait, Clara did what? Is that true?" Clara glanced wildly between her husband and son, cornered at last by her own web of deceit. Aiden misunderstood. I was just trying to provide the lifestyle he deserves." I almost admired her stubborn arrogance, still convinced her selfish decisions had been justified and could simply be waved away. She wasn't even ashamed of stealing from her own child. It would have been pathetic if her actions hadn't destroyed so many innocent lives, including Aiden's. As we left Clara and Ethan arguing bitterly in the entry hall, I drew Aiden into a fierce hug. "I'm taking you home with us tonight," I declared firmly. "We'll get things settled, come up with a plan." Over my shoulder, I glimpsed Clara pacing as she shouted shrilly into her phone, likely calling wealthy friends to bemoan her awful in-laws who refused to bankroll her lifestyle any longer. That night, Aiden fell into restless sleep on our couch, emotions spent. My husband and I lay awake clutching each other in the pre-dawn darkness, both yearning for the peace and happiness torn apart by one woman's obsession with material wealth. Over the following weeks, we managed to recover a portion of Aiden's college savings from the bankrupt investment scheme. Between those rescued funds, scholarships, and a reasonable loan, Columbia remained blessedly within reach. Away from his mother's poisonous presence, Aiden began smiling more often, embracing simple pleasures again rather than demand privileges and status. Ethan initiated divorce proceedings soon after, finally accepting that Clara would never change her selfish ways, not even for their son. She received the divorce petition while vacationing in St. Bart's with her socialite girlfriends, likely on Ethan's dime once again. As summer waned into autumn, stories trickled back to me of Clara's public disgrace. With her supply of easy money cut off, she now struggled keeping up appearances among her judging wealthy circles. I took some small satisfaction knowing she now reaped the consequences after so callously gambling away our family's financial and emotional well-being for her own gain. The golden leaves had begun to fall when I drove Aiden to the airport, his trunk packed for move-in weekend at Columbia. My eyes brimmed as I held his handsome face between my hands. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered fiercely, "and I know one day you'll pay this opportunity forward." He hugged me tight, his chest swelling with a deep breath. "I will, Grandma. Thank you for everything." I watched my grandson walk confidently toward his future until he disappeared. Turning away, I raised my face to the brisk autumn breeze. Our family still bore scars from Clara's obsessive greed, but the healing had also begun at last.